mentioned creating your own path. What's the path that you want to create for yourself?
I want to get a message out and help other people while also building myself up and getting what I want.
That was good. Yeah. Happiness is what happens.
And that stuck with me even through challenging times that followed uh, being in the army, being an educator. When people didn't believe in me, I still was able to believe in myself because
5 years ago, I discovered podcasts and it changed my life because I started to listen to all these podcasts and start to hear all of this free information and all these fly on the wall conversations with these amazing people. And it literally changed who I am as a person. So
find that, whatever it is, that truth that aligns with us, that makes us feel good, and use that to ground us.
Wow, because life is going to come faster to those people who do that to credit.
So I just want to say, whoever's listening, thank you. Hey everyone, welcome to the Case by Casey podcast. I'm your host, Jethro Casey, and if you're a new listener, this podcast is all about uncovering the secrets to success, one case at a time. I'll be interviewing amazing guests to try and understand what it means to win and succeed in life. If you want to go faster, you go alone, but if you want to go further, we go together. So join me on trying to figure out the secrets to success. Okay. And here we go. Hey everyone, welcome to the Case by Casey podcast. I'm your host, Jethro Casey, and if you're a new listener, this podcast is all about uncovering the secrets to success, one case at a time. I'll be interviewing amazing guests to try and understand what it means to win and succeed in life. If you want to go faster, you go alone, but if you want to go further, we go together. So join me on trying to figure out the secrets to success. Hey everyone, today I'm back with another interview, and today I'm talking to a coach, a fitness coach, mindset coach, health and wellness coach, and now he's a self-confidence and happiness coach. He coaches you to be a happy, healthier human. Welcome, Paul Levintin, to Case by Casey. How are you, Paul?
I'm doing awesome. And I want to say one, thank you for having me. And two, I love the name of the show. It's such a it's such an awesome play on your name. And I love your introduction as well. So I'm super excited to be here.
Thank you, appreciate that. So, since you've worn so many hats with coaching, when did you realize you were actually a good coach and this was something that you wanted to do?
Yeah, for sure. It started because I started as a fitness coach, as a personal trainer. And that's kind of how I discovered coaching in general. And just coaching is just helping people, right? Helping people become better in some way. And it was becoming a personal trainer that allowed me to see that this was something that I was good at, because I had never wanted to be a personal trainer. I had never set out to do that. I went to school for business administration, and that's what my degree is in. But then when I graduated, I didn't want to do that. So I was like, okay, I'll just be a personal trainer for the time being until I figure out something else to do. Like that, it was just like a stopgap in my mind. But then when I started doing it and I really started helping people and I started to see the change that I could make in people's lives, that's when I really got into it. And that's when I started diving deeper into not just fitness, but then nutrition, and then psychology and mindset and personal development and self-confidence and all the other things, because the one underlying factor in all of those things is just change. And that's what a coach is doing, is just helping people change. And so I just became very passionate about helping people grow and become better people, because why wouldn't I want to do that? It just seems super logical to me. It's like, if I can live a healthier, happier life and I could help other people do the same thing, it just seemed like a great thing to be doing with my time.
So, can you talk about how you were in college, and was there anybody in college who kind of helped you realize that you can make the change to kind of be the person who you wanted to be?
Yeah, I mean, no, because in college I was not like this. This was a very in college, I was a very different person. I was not, I was not the healthy person, nor the personal development person, or even the happy person. I was a mess. I was partying all the time. I was drinking. I was doing drugs. I was, I was in college, whatever. I was having fun. And I wasn't like this. Again, I just said I graduated a degree in business administration. The reason I did business administration was because it seemed like the easiest thing to me. Like I was literally very much the kind of guy to just kind of do whatever, the bare minimum and just kind of get by. I was just going to school so that I could my parents told me I was supposed to get a degree. So I just went to go get a degree. I had no clue I'd never thought about in my 5 years of college. I took 5 years instead of 4, what I would actually do once I graduated. Like it didn't even pass my mind to think of that. So none of this came in college or even slightly after. Again, it was really because after college, because of that, because I had went through college, not doing anything, not taking it seriously, that I got out of school with no job prospects. And then after being unemployed for a while, I was like, well, I have to figure something out. So I'll become a personal trainer, because personal training was, fitness was something I was like, at least if I'm going to do a job, it could be something where I get jacked while I'm doing it. That was, again, as far as I thought through it. And then it was only because of that, through getting more involved in it, and then actually seeing the change that I could make in myself and with my clients, and then starting to learn and my own personal journey, that I then transitioned that into helping others. But it was never like planned that way. And it was definitely not anything that I was doing when I was younger. It wasn't until I was about like 25, 26 till I really figured out things a little bit more, which is sad, because again, I looking back now, it's like I wasted so much time in college, like some classes that I would skip, or like not doing, projects that I would like not do or something like that, where it's like I was paying for this and I was all of this knowledge that I left on the table. But everything happens for a reason, and it all led me to where I am now.
I 100% everything happens for a reason. And I know there's a lot of college students and even young adults who still feel like they're still just skating by, not really sure where to go. So it's definitely, I think it's comforting when you get to hear that other people are going through similar problems as you. So I'm really interested personally. Why did you start your podcast, and how were the beginning days of your podcast like?
Yeah. So one, just to what you were saying about like young people in college, anyone in college listening to this, like, again, like I didn't even consider myself an adult until I was like 28. Like I was like at like 25, 26, I was like, I'm still a child. Like I have no, like I'm 32 now. And only in the last like 4 or 5 years have I really, do I think, gotten my shit together enough to say that like, okay, like I kind of understand what being a human adult is about. So I think that, everyone is, again, on the right path already. As for my podcast, well, a big part of it was just because of COVID, right? I started it in September of 2020. So I just happened to have the time and the inclination to do it. But specifically podcasting in general is something that's very interesting to me. I'm a big listener of podcasts. I listen to a ton of podcasts, and a lot of that is about my personal growth journey, right? A lot of that, again, 5 years ago, I discovered podcasts, and it changed my life because I started to listen to all these podcasts and start to hear all of this free information and all of these fly on the wall conversations with these amazing people. And it literally changed who I am as a person. So I always wanted to have my own podcast as well. And, it's really started as just having the conversations that I would have all the time anyway. So if my podcast is called The Happy, Healthy Human, and if you scroll all the way back to episode 1 is called Start With Why. And what I talk about is anytime you want to change your life, the first question you have to ask is why? What's the point? Why am I going to do this? And this is the type of conversation that I have with all potential clients, right? So when someone came to me at the gym when I was a personal trainer, or if someone comes to me now and wants to work on their self-confidence, we have to start with why, because things are going to be hard. So it's like, why is it worth it for you to put in the effort that is going to take you to get this result? And so the podcast just kind of evolved like that. The next episode is about goal setting. The next episode after that is about, about health and happiness. So it was just all of these conversations that I have over and over and over with people, because people are asking me the same questions. The last word of my podcast title is human, because we're all human. So I can have these same conversations and people kind of get it, because we're all just talking about human stuff. So it was just like, all right, now when someone comes to me and I'm like, hey, just go listen to this podcast. Like, hey, here's a whole episode I did on self-confidence. Here's a whole episode I did on imposter syndrome, on this, on that. So it just became easier for me to do it. And it's also a really cool way to connect with people and to meet people. There's a lot of people who have come on my podcast, professionals in different realms and different places that I would never get to sit down and talk to for 30 minutes just to chat with them, but they'll come on my show and talk for an hour. So it's a cool thing to do and to grow. And I think it helps me and it helps other people as well.
So there's a lot you said there that I want to dive into, but the first thing is that you mentioned the why. And something that I struggled with quite a bit was finding my purpose in life. And many young adults feel rushed to figure out everything in their 20s. So how should I and others 20-somethings deal with the stress to figure out life so young and figuring out their why so young?
Yeah, you just don't. You just understand that, again, the 20 is nothing, right? Again, I'm 32 and I understand that I'm just starting to figure things out. But in reality, I'm 100% sure that by 35 or 40, I will not be doing what I'm doing. You know, like this is the thing. Like we think that our present version of ourselves thinks that the rest of our life is going to be thought with the same brain that's thinking right now. So as a 22, 25, 32-year-old, we make decisions about what's going to happen when we're 40 or 50 or 60. But think about who you are now versus who you were 5 years ago. It's probably a very different person. So the logic makes sense that who you are 5 years from now is going to be a very different person. So I don't get too caught up on like finding an exact purpose or an exact thing, because that stuff isn't as real. But again, to have a why, I think I'm talking about more from a specific goal perspective or achievement perspective, meaning whatever you want to do, whatever it is, again, whether it's start a podcast, get healthy, change your body, make money, get a job, whatever it is, behind each specific task needs to be a why, because everything is hard. And you're going to quit hard things if you don't have a deep-seated why. Now, this isn't saying that you have to have like some fleshed out purpose that drives every decision in your life, but it's just like, if you are going to start a podcast, what's the point of it? Because if you're just like, yeah, I'm just going to start a podcast because it sounds fun until it isn't, until it's hard, until you're like, oh shit, I have to fucking edit these episodes and I have to find guests and I have to think of questions. And you're like, screw that. But if you have a why, you keep going. And that's kind of what you need to be the driving factor behind all of these things. But to think that, again, at 20 something, 30 something, 40 something, people will have your life figured out. It's just not real. You hear about people all the time in their 40s or 50s, starting a new career or finally finding their stride, right? People who struggled through their 20s, 30s, 40s, and at 50 made $1 million and started a business or something like that. So again, it feels like, okay, in my 20s, I'm supposed to have everything figured out, but it's just not really like that.
So something else that you mentioned that I want to talk about is imposter syndrome. And I know for a lot of people they struggle with, and this is like me personally as well. I kind of think sometimes like, am I the person who I think I am, or how other people view me? Is that that might not be how I necessarily view myself. So what tactics, I guess, would you have for people who are struggling with imposter syndrome?
Yeah. So for one, like there are two different things. So what you said there about like, is the way that I see myself, the way that other people see me. I think that's a specific thing, because I don't think it is, right? And this is one thing where you have to kind of think about control, like what we can control and what we can't control. And what we can't control is how other people view us. We can't control how other people see us. We can't control how other people react to what we do. We can only control ourselves and what we do and what we say and what we think. So, any credence or importance we put on the way other people react to us is inherently going to open us up to disappointment and to negativity, because you can't control how that's going to happen. So, the main thing is to focus on what you can control, and what you can control lies here squarely inside of me, inside of my brain, inside what I can control me. And that's it. So I can't put any emotional attachment onto what others think of me or what I do or what I say or anything like that. That's different than imposter. When I think of imposter syndrome, what I'm thinking of is like, the imposter syndrome is like when people feel like, who am I to do this? Right? Who am I to be a coach? What do I know to be teaching people about self-confidence or something like that? Who am I? Well, a lot of times young 20 somethings now, or young people are getting really cool, high paying jobs, right? In tech or something like that, or a startup or something. Who am I to be making all this money? Who am I to be at 25 in charge of a team of people who are older than me, right? So we have all these feelings of like, am I worthy? Am I enough? Is this supposed to be for me? And that's imposter syndrome. And when I think about that, I kind of just, I just preface this with saying, I think this is a very natural feeling, because I think that this is my own personal philosophy, or my own kind of thing that I thought of, I kind of just made up, is just that we all inside of us have a unique understanding of being human, and meaning that like we all know what it is to be human because we are humans. And yet we live in a society that is hierarchical, right? Meaning that some people are above others, right? There's a boss, there's a CEO, there's your parents, there's a principal, then there's people who are below others, there's janitors, there's this, there's that. But we all know at a deep human level that we're all just humans, right? And that's a paradox that puts us in a weird place, because it's like, on one side, I am making more money and I am technically in my job above someone in status. And yet I know in real level that you and I are no different, and I can't be above you because you're a human just like I am. So it's a very hard thing for our brain and our body to grasp with and grapple with. So I just think it's the reason I say that, I think it's important because people to understand that it's just a natural feeling. It is unnatural to be above someone, quote unquote, because it's not real. I can't be, even saying it sounds like, oh, well, like I'm above you because you do this job and I do this job. It's like, that's not a real thing. We're both humans. We both have skin and bones. We're both going to fucking die. And like, none of that is real. So we know that, but at the same time, we live in a society where it is real, where again, I have more money than you. So that means that I have more sway than you, that where I can fire you, that means that you have to suck up to me. And like, so it just puts us in this weird thing. But I just say that like, you have to just understand that these are natural feelings. Like, we weren't made to be in these weird societies that we live in, right? Human nature has not caught up to the evolution of human society. So we're in a weird place that we just kind of have to accept it and grapple with it and then move forward with it with that understanding.
So you said 99% of problems boil down to one word: expectations. And many people struggle with setting unrealistic expectations for themselves. What's some advice you would have for someone listening who tends to expect too much at a time?
Yeah, it's a tough one. And exactly, right? Like you said, it is most of our problems. And it's not the expectations solely are the problem. It's that we become attached to expectations, right? So we need expectations because they're what drive us forward. Okay. You get out of bed in the morning and go to your job because you expect to get paid, right? I go to the gym because I expect to be more fit. I buy my girlfriend flowers because I expect that she'll be happy. But as I was just saying before, I can't control the way other people react. So I buy my girlfriend because I expect her to be happy, but there's a chance that she might go, okay, cool, I don't really care about flowers. And now if I have an emotional attachment to that reaction that I was expecting for her, again, I'm setting myself up for disappointment. So what we have to try to do, and again, this is hard stuff. This is stuff that, the Buddhists have been meditating over for thousands of years, and Jewish philosophers and Christian philosophers and Stoic philosophers have been speaking about this stuff. This is nothing that I'm making up or anything like that. I'm just saying that it's hard to do, is to be able to detach ourselves from the emotional attachment of the expectation, meaning to be accepting of any outcome and to take actions without being so attached to a specific outcome, meaning I'm going to do the thing with the expectation that it'll work out in my favor, but the understanding that even if it doesn't, all I can control is the action that I'm taking, right? So all I can control is doing my best to study. I can't control the way the teacher grades my paper. All I can do is do my best, and I can't dictate the way that it shakes out after that. And I have to just accept that. And acceptance is a very hard thing. And it takes training. It takes training your brain. But I always come back to this thing of like, did I do my best? If I did my best, then I'm happy. And if I didn't, then it's not the result I'm upset about. It's me not doing my best that I'm upset about. And that's what I have to change in the future. Did I do my best to study? Did I do my best to do in the workout? Did I do my best to make that relationship work? Did I do my best to get the promotion? Whatever it is, I write down my values every day in my journal. And one of the things I write is I do my best and I accept the outcome. That's it, because that's all I can ever do. I can do my best. And once I put it out there into the universe, the way the universe accepts that is not for me to decide. And I have to be okay with that. But that doesn't mean that I shouldn't always try my best.
So I'm someone who loves journaling and affirmations as well. So if anybody's listening who doesn't journal or make affirmations, I highly recommend that. I think it really just improves your kind of I guess your self belief, kind of like who you are. Because I remember when I first started, I would say my affirmations, and I wouldn't really believe it, but over time, I've started to believe it. So my question to you is, as a coach, have you seen like any, I guess, reoccurrence of like people's whys or reasons for like wanting to, I guess, start improving? Have you seen like any, I guess, reoccurring, I guess, reasons to like want to improve?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's honestly, that's the easy one, because usually people start for just a handful of reasons, right? But that's the thing, is that their reasons to start usually aren't that good. And so it's like people start because they want to feel better, they want to look better, they want to have more money. Or that, I mean, it usually boils down to a few things, but that's the whole point of like finding a real why. So there's a difference between the why that gets you started and the why that keeps you in it, right? That's the why of someone going to the gym of like, well, I want to lose weight. But as we all know, that most people say that, and then a few months later they've stopped because losing weight isn't that big of a goal, or I mean, isn't that good of a goal. It's not really internalized like that. Or again, I want to be rich, I want to be successful. All of these things, I call these magic wand goals, right? And these are goals that, like, if someone could wave a magic wand and give them to you, you would accept it, right? Like, who doesn't want to be a millionaire? Who doesn't want to be successful? Who doesn't want to have a business? Who doesn't want to be 10% body fat or whatever the thing is? But then when it boils down to it, and we're like, okay, but here's what you have to do to get that. Now it's like, oh, well, hold on there. Like, I don't, like, huh. So people don't actually don't realize what they're getting themselves into when they dive into something like this. And that's a big part of what I do as a coach. And I'm like, okay, like, here's what you want. Here's what it's going to take to get there. Now we can have a real conversation about, is this worth it to you? And if it is, then we can make an action plan to get you there. But a lot of times, again, when I was a personal trainer at the gym, is a very easy example. What does every guy want? A six pack, right? Every guy who comes in and works, every guy who comes in is like, yeah, I just want to lose my belly and kind of have a six pack. And then I'm going, okay, dude, we can get you there. But here's what it's actually going to take. Because it's not just going to take you coming to me twice a week for an hour. What it's going to take is this, plus cutting out alcohol, plus cutting back on this, plus cardio, plus this, plus blah, blah, blah. And it's not going to take 2 months. It's going to take a year. And then blah, blah, blah. And then when we've laid out all the real details and you can make an informed, educated decision, some people might go, okay, it's worth it. It's all of that sacrifice is worth it because that's how bad I want abs. But for most times, people go, no, actually, no, I don't really want to do that. But that's the whole thing, is like, when you have a why to get you started, it probably isn't going to be the why that keeps you in it. And that's where, again, where people mess up, because they think like, well, like, yeah, of course, who doesn't want to be rich? Like, that's my why, I want to be rich. But that's not a real why. That's a surface level. And we have to keep going deeper and deeper to get you something that's connected, that's going to be worth making those hard trade-offs.
So going back to expectations, I'm just interested. Are there any expectations that you put on yourself that maybe you shouldn't?
Good question. Yeah, of course, always. Again, I teach about this stuff. I talk about this stuff. I podcast on this stuff, and I'm not perfect. I fall for these things, right? And should is another loaded word, right? What I should or shouldn't do and expect myself to do and things like that. Yeah, for sure. Like, morning routines, things like that. I teach about morning routines, but am I perfect? Do I do a morning routine every day? Journaling is a good one, right? I journal a lot, but there's times I don't. Meditation. There's all these things that I know are theoretically good, right? That I know would be better if I did it every day. If I woke up every day, did a perfect morning routine, exercise, journaled, meditated, did blah, blah, blah. Like, yeah, theoretically my life would be better, but it's also like, I'm a human. I'm not a machine. I'm not a robot. I don't go through my life like that. And I don't really, again, it's hard for me to say expectations, because again, I'm very much accepting of the way my life is. So it's hard for me, it's, again, there are times when things don't work out. A lot of times with my business, because I am an entrepreneur, I have my own business. So everything is on me to kind of sink or swim. So there are times when things don't work out, or when a contract falls through, or when a client leaves or something like that. And I'm like, I get upset about it, but then I always have to come back to, again, was it my fault or wasn't it? Did I do my best or did I not? And if I did my best, and if I put my effort in and I did my part, then I kind of have to just accept it. It's it takes time to get to that place, because that's it's a hard thing to do, to talk about, because you can take this to extremes, right? With, like, I don't know if Tom Bilyeu has a podcast called Impact Theory. He's the guy who started Quest bars, and he always he uses the example of, like, it's like if my wife went on a week-long vacation in Paris, in some little chateau in the south of France, and all of a sudden, while she's at this little castle, she's partying, and out of nowhere an asteroid comes out of space and hits that castle and she dies. Like, whose fault is it? And he goes, it's mine, because I didn't take the responsibility to, I knew she was going to be traveling. I didn't look up NASA and see if there were any asteroids. Like, it's basically extreme ownership and extreme responsibility. Like, when you look at life that way, of like, everything is my fault, regardless of if it's my fault or not. Right. So, because people will hear that and they go, well, of course it's not, everything isn't my fault. I didn't choose to get cancer. I didn't choose to get into a car accident. I didn't choose for there to be an economic downturn. But the point is that, again, you can't change anything that isn't your fault. You can't change anything that you don't have direct control of. So either I'm going to accept that it's my fault, and then I'm going to take responsibility over it, or I'm going to say, well, it's not my fault. And the reason people want to do that, because then it takes the responsibility off of us. Like, oh, well, it's not my fault. It was the economy. Oh, it's just cancer. No one can stop that. Oh, it's like, once you do that, you're inherently losing, because now you can't change it. It feels good in that moment, because you're like, okay, well, it's not my fault. I get to not, oh, it wasn't me, it was my boss. My boss is a dickhead. Oh, it wasn't me, my girlfriend. She never takes what I have to say seriously. Whatever. As soon as you do that, you're saying that, like, you're accepting that thing as, like, oh, well, so yeah, it's extreme ownership is taking responsibility for everything, whether it's your fault or not, because you only solve problems that you helped create. Anytime that you can say that the problem wasn't your fault, what you're inherently doing is pushing that off. And you're saying that, oh, well, like, I didn't do it, so it's not my fault to fix it. So we have to just take ownership, and it's hard to do. And, but when I think about, like, expectations, that's the opposite of that. It's like, oh, well, I expected it to be different because I expected it to work out differently. I don't expect it. Either I do it or I don't. Either I did it, either I took the action or I didn't. And if I didn't, again, I can change that. And if I did and it didn't work out the way I could, then I can't change it. Right. So there's a saying, it's like, can you change it? Yes, then don't worry. No, then don't worry. Right. So like, that's pretty much how I live my life.
That's awesome. That's a great philosophy. That seems, I think I read the book, or started reading the book, I think The Daily Stoic, and it kind of so much of it is about accepting what you can change and not worrying about what you can't. So another question I have for you is, you mentioned in your interview with Kate Nash that you believe that everyone not only can be successful, but that they deserve to be successful. And not everyone feels this way. So what can you say right now to someone listening who may not exactly have that belief within themselves currently?
Yeah, I 100% feel that way, because, again, we are all humans, and all humans are equal at the end of the day. So because we live in this hierarchical society where you might have been born with less of a platform, or you might have been born poor, or someone might have been born to a single mother, or adopted, or there's a million bad things that can happen to people. And then they can look at people who had so many other legs up, people who are successful, who have money, who have status, who have all these things. And it's easy to feel other. It's easy to feel different. Like, oh, they can have that, but I can't. They have the opportunities, I don't. But in reality, again, we are all just humans, and everyone deserves happiness, success, fulfillment. These are not things that are reserved for the elite, right? And it might have been, had you been born 100, 200, 300 years ago, right? Where poor people had to work on a farm and only the rich people got to eat warm meals and have clothes and things like that. But that's not where we are anymore. We live in a very transitory time in human history where wealth and opportunity and success is not only accessible, but there for anyone to take. Poor people become rich every day in America, in this country, everywhere. People who had nothing, people have it all, then lose it all, then get it all back. Like, crazy, impossible things that were impossible even 20 years ago are possible today. So we live in a very exciting time where anyone can have things, but you have to go out and take it. Nothing is going to be given to you. And, having that mindset, this is why mindset is so important, because if I have that thought, that feeling of like, well, I can't, then you won't. If you have a feeling of that's impossible, then it will be. If you have a feeling of, if you have a thought process of like, well, that's not for me, that's for them, then that will be the truth that you live. So it all starts with, this is why it's not like, oh, just believe it and it'll become true. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is that if you don't believe it, you will never get it.
So how do you change that impossible to I'm possible? How do you kind of get that feeling of I can't do it to I can do it? How would somebody, if I've never really maybe achieved anything or achieved anything that I believe to be, I guess, noteworthy, how do I become that person who's able to, I guess, become the person who can achieve those things that I want to achieve?
Yeah. I mean, it goes to what we've been talking about all today. And tactically, it's things like, as you brought up, journaling, affirmations, self-talk. It's listening to podcasts like this. It's inundating yourself with positivity, right? So this is why, as cliche as this stuff sounds, exactly like you said, the Daily Stoic, I have it literally sitting right here a few feet away from me. I've read it. I read it. That's the Daily Reader. I've read it. Like, I read it every year. I read positive books. I listen to positive podcasts. I watch TED Talks. I watch YouTube videos. I do affirmations. I do journaling, because I have to program my brain, right? Your brain has what's called a negativity bias, meaning it will always pay more attention to negative things and try to keep you safe, right? And this is a survival mechanism, because for all of human history, up until 20 years ago, when the internet was created, you had to survive, right? You could starve to death. You could freeze to death. You had to run from tigers and wolves and elephants or whatever else might kill you. But we don't live in that world anymore. Where we live now is we're safe, and food is delivered to you by an Uber driver, and you can have literally anything at the touch of a button. So our brain is still always looking for negative things, and it will always find a reason to be negative. So you have to flip that, and you have to program it with positivity. And again, that's why affirmations are so powerful. Again, it's not just simply saying, I am successful every day is going to make you successful. It's that by programming your brain with positivity, you program it to look for positive things. You program it to have a more positive outlook. And a brain that looks for more positive things looks for the possibilities rather than looking for the reasons that it can't happen, right? Because two people can be presented with the exact same opportunities. But one person who is a negative person and who's always just thinking of reasons they can't do things and the reasons things won't work out. How many friends do you have like that? I have friends like that all the time. As soon as I bring something up, they're like, yeah, but what about this? Oh yeah, but if you try that, then what if no one listens? What if no one buys it? What if they always have the negative thing to say? It's like, no shit. The negative stuff is always going to be there. But you also have another friend. It's like, oh my God, that's such a good idea. Oh, that's so cool. Oh, imagine if you added this. That positivity, that positive person will see the same opportunity and they'll go for it and they'll try it. And because of that, they will find success. Whereas the negative person never even tries. They never even do the thing. Or at the first sign of turbulence, they see it as a reason to stop. They see it as a reason to quit. They say, see, I knew this was never going to work out, and they quit. So what the journaling does, the affirmation do, the vision boards, the podcast, all of these things, it just teaches your brain that you want it to be more positive, that you want it to look for the good in things, that you want it to be open to new experiences and all these other things that have to be happening in order for you to possibly find success. None of this guarantees success, but it makes it possible. And not doing this stuff makes it extremely challenging.
Okay, so I know you're an avid reader. So let's say someone listening has never touched a book besides the ones that they've had in school that they were forced to read. What book would you recommend, and what and what could the person expect to know from after reading the book?
Yeah, I definitely am an avid reader, but it's funny you said like, except for the books they had in college, because I told you in college, I didn't do anything. I didn't even read a book in college. Like I wore it as like a badge of honor that like I would go through all of my courses without even buying the textbooks. So I would like borrow here and there, or like I would just try my hardest to never have to buy a textbook. So I didn't even read in college. So now when I tell people I read 100 books a year or something like that, they're like, oh, that's cool. But it's like, for me, like, I went from the time I was 16 to 27. I didn't read a single book. And now I read again, at least a book a week, if not two. So just to say that people who don't read, you can't, like, I built this. I was not like always a reader. It's like, I learned that, oh, reading will help me be a better person and be more successful. So then the more I read, the more successful I'll be. So I just adapted that. But to your question about what books I recommend, there's a handful of books that I recommend that I call books that I think every human should read. 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, probably the number one. Stephen Covey, that book changed my life. Think and Grow Rich is another one, changed my life. Those are the 2 books that really opened up my brain that I read like first. That's probably a big part of the reason I hold them so highly, because those came very early in my those are what made me understand, like, oh, okay, there's a different way that I could be living. I read those 2 books and it cracked my brain open. I was like, oh, okay, there's something different there. And then another book is called Sapiens, which is just more about human history and, like, again, why we are the way that we are. It's a very interesting one. But I think that those are great places to start, because what I like to read about and what all of these books teach about are human nature. Because again, if you understand humans, you understand life. There's a reason that I can talk to you. I can talk on my podcast. I can do speeches to corporations or whatever, and people sit and they nod their head like this. It's because I'm just talking about humans. I have a deep understanding of human nature and human beings. And when you have that, you've pretty much cracked the code of whatever else you want to do.
So you mentioned that you're writing a book called Doing the Hard Thing. What made you decide to start writing the book, and what are kind of some unique challenges that you face writing that you don't face, I guess, anywhere else in your life?
Yeah, good question. That's cool. So yeah, Do the Hard Thing is the concept of my book, and because that's exactly it, right? So that's my whole theory of life, is that everything comes down to that one decision, the hard thing and an easy thing. Everything that we want comes on the other side of doing a hard thing. But human nature is to do the easy thing, right? Human nature is to keep us safe and is to avoid doing hard things. Your brain, your body will always tell you to do the easy thing over the hard things, right? You want to be healthy, but you want to sit on the couch and watch Netflix. You want to lose weight, but instead of eating the salad, you want to eat Oreos. You want to be rich and have a successful business, but instead of staying up late and working on your business, you want to go to sleep or you want to watch Netflix. It's a very binary thing. We need to do the hard thing, but every ounce of our being wants us to do the easy thing. And that's the battle, the constant struggle that we're always fighting. And then just writing in general is just a challenging thing, because I write a lot, but sometimes it goes nowhere. And sometimes sometimes I just write and I have the same chapter written 8 times in 8 different ways. And I don't know that I'll ever actually finish it. Like, it's just me getting my thoughts and just kind of trying to put it into a more cohesive capsule. So that's part of what the podcast does, the same thing. But writing it's challenging in some ways, but it's just me trying to get my overarching philosophy on life into one thing that I can then have, forever. In the same way that the podcast is just me putting the conversations that I have all the time onto, that I can give to people. This is just me wanting to. I have a lot of, clearly you can hear when I talk, I have a lot of stuff going on, and I just want to kind of get it down on paper. So that's a big goal of mine, in the coming months.
So I'm interested, what are some other goals that you have currently?
Yes, I mean, I go up and down with these things. So again, it's funny because I teach people about goals. I'm big on goal setting with my clients and things like that. But personally, I don't have a lot of goals because I live my life the way that I want to in general. So again, people want to lose weight, or they want to do this, or they want to do that. But so we need goals for that. But like, my life is good, not perfect. Again, I still want to obey. So again, there's things like I have my podcast, I have my book that I'm writing, I have my business that I'm trying to build. But all of those things are just inherent in what I'm doing. Like, I get up and I do my work every day. I don't need a goal to do that, right? So I don't have a fitness goal because I exercise every day. I don't have a goal to eat healthy because that's already a part of my life. Like, this is I've built and this is what I want for people that I work with too. It's like, I built my life in such a way that, like, goals are arbitrary at this point, because I do the things that I need to do because I love to do them. Right. So it's not like, oh, I have to get up, and that's why I created my own business. It wasn't because I wanted to be an entrepreneur. It's because I wanted to build my life in the way that I wanted to do it. Right. There's a reason that I go bike riding and I go rock climbing. It's not, it's just because, like, I want to be healthy and move my body every day. So I find things that are active and healthy, but also enjoyable. for me. It's not, so it's, yes, I need goals. It's certain there, I feel like there's seasons for everything. Right. So there's times when, all right, I have a specific project that I'm working on, a specific deadline that I'm working with or something like that. And then I have goals for that. But just in general in life, my goal is, again, just to live a good life and to act in ways that are congruent with my values. And as long as I'm doing that, then I don't need a specific goal or specific metrics to make sure that I'm doing it. But I say that to also say that, again, I did have goals for a long time. Like this is not like I feel like it's kind of the same thing with like fitness, right? I don't really have to have fitness goals, but that's also because I've put in my 10 years in the gym, right? So it's like I don't think that people start off this way. I think that I've earned the right I've laid the bricks and the foundation of my life to be like, now I've got reached a point where like I can just kind of like go with the flow. But in the beginning, I do think you do need goals to kind of set metrics and to push you in the right direction. And then eventually, you get to a point where it's like, all right, like now I get to just like live.
Yeah, I'm a bit of the same way with fitness. I've only been working out coming up on 4 years now. But I remember when I first started, it was all about building muscle, bodybuilding, like trying to look good. Now I'm like kind of going to the gym and I just kind of have more fun. Like I saw that you recently started rock climbing, or not recently, but you started rock climbing. And I saw that the video that you posted on your Instagram where you were trying to do like this one like specific, I guess, route in the rock climb and you kept failing. But the thing is, like, you kept continuing with it. What was your why for continuing with that specific climb when you could have just been like, like I'm over this?
Yeah, so I think the reason I got into rock climbing, I've been doing it for like off and on for like a year or two, but like recently I've gotten more serious about it in the last couple of months. But it's cool to me because it's a physical thing, but it's also mental, right? So there's like a physical aspect of like, yeah, I have to climb it, but you also have to figure it out. It's like a puzzle at the same time. So that's why it's a cool thing to me. And it's kind of like the same thing with weightlifting. It's like there's a certain thing, right? If you went into the gym and you never lifted a weight before, and you want to go deadlift 400 pounds, it's not even like it's too heavy. It's impossible, right? It's just literally like it's glued to the floor. Like you yank on it and it doesn't move. But if you go and you try to lift like 100 pounds and it's like you could lift 90, you lift it a little bit and then like it kind of goes back down and you see like, whoa, like that was possible. Right. So this is what if there's a concept called flow, like being in a flow state. And there's a whole science of flow. But I won't get into all of it, but a flow state is defined as like, you're very involved in the moment. Time slows down. You're completely in the state. You're completely living in the moment. It's peak human performance, right? So like basketball players, a lot at the end of the game after the thing, they're like, what were you thinking when you took the last shot? And they're like, I wasn't thinking, like I just did it, like, or whatever, like people playing a piano and a concert or something like that. Like the state of flow is something that people seek to achieve. And one of the tenets of flow is an optimal level of challenge, meaning if you were, again, say you're playing tennis and you are going up against a professional and you're like, you're not great, but you're not bad either. You're going up against a professional, they're just going to destroy you and it's not going to be fun. And at the same time, if you're pretty good and you bring your cousin who's never played before, it's not going to be fun either because it's too easy. So you have to have the peak, that right, perfect level of like the whole Goldilocks thing, like not too hot, not too cold, that just right level of challenge that lets you get into flow. So with the rock climbing, there's certain times where it's like that, where it's like, if I had not been able to even start it, I wouldn't have cared that much because like it would have been too hard for me. But it was the fact that I had gotten so close that like it got me to where I was like, it's doable, right? So like, again, the weightlifting thing, if I went and lift and it's stapled to the floor, I'm like, well, this is just too heavy. Like but it's like when you almost get it and you lose it right at the end, you're like, well, shit, I have to get it now. So it's like, it's a cool thing. Again, it's very analogous to any other type of physical activity, but it's just that it was just a cool thing of like, I saw that there was a possibility that I could get it. So it's funny because when I was doing it, I was frustrated. I was like, I wish I hadn't gotten this far and I could just give up. But now I've gotten so close that like, now I just want to finish it. And I got to that point. So it's just finding that perfect level of like challenging enough to be challenging, but not so challenging, so hard that it's like defeating and you feel that you can never do it.
And I think that's a testament to your character because I think most people, when they do face something hard, like you said, it's so much easier to go to like the negative side of your brain and just to give up. So I think that really just shows like what type of person you are. So I'm interested. You mentioned your friends quite a bit in your podcast, and how important it is to have a good group of friends, or how important is it to have a good group of friends? And then also on top of that, how important is it? Important is networking in the business world and just like as an adult after college.
Yeah, I mean, it's everything because your environment is so powerful, right? Your environment is the things around you, but also the people around you. You go again, there's a cliche thing, if you're the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with, but that's exactly the case, right? So when my personal development and stuff really got into it, I was working at the gym, and one of the other trainers, her name was Shannon, she got really into it with me, and like I would be like, hey, I'm going to this seminar this weekend, do you want to come? She's like, yeah, sure, let's do it. And we would do book swaps, and we would do all these different things, or like I would send her blogs, and she would send me videos that she was watching and stuff like that, and like that really helped, and that like really poured gasoline on the fire. And I don't think I would have progressed as quickly without having her there, right? I have friends that we talk financial stuff about it. So we talk about investments, we talk about this, we talk about real estate and the type of stuff that we're interested in. And again, having them to bounce ideas off of and just to talk about these things, because stuff like this can be very isolating, personal growth, personal development, right? Because so many people don't do it. Most of my friends are not talking about this stuff. Most of my friends are just content going through the motions and living a mediocre life at their mediocre. And again, this isn't not to say that this is bad. This is like, that's fine. They're happy with it, but that's not what I want. So it's hard to be on that mission, to be like, again, like it's a Saturday morning right now, we're doing a podcast. I could have been out doing something like, last night I stayed home and I read a book. I didn't go out partying and stuff like that. So it's hard to make those sacrifices sometimes, and having people around you who have the same values as you. Like I was saying before, I live my life accordance with my values. People who are living the same values as you, one, it helps, it builds you up. It also makes you feel that you're not crazy, because sometimes it can feel crazy. Like, wait, am I supposed to just be going out and going partying? Am I supposed to not care about like building a business? Am I supposed to like whatever? And it's just having those people around you is super powerful. And then networking is just building that, because again, nothing happens on its own. Like I said before, you got to go out and take it. So you're not just these people are not going to come knocking on your door. The people who are into the stuff that you're into, the people who want to grow, the people who want to be better. So, finding these people and creating your tribe is a challenge, but it's very important. And, that's why personal development, professional development, right? I go to, podcast conventions, I go to fitness conventions, I go to places where the people who do the things that I'm interested in would hang out. I would go to podcast conventions and I meet podcasters. I go to fitness conventions and I meet fitness people. And like, those are the people, those are my people, those are my tribe, those are the people, and those are the people I keep in contact with. And that's how you grow over time, because once you graduate college, you're not making a lot of social connections and stuff like that. And even if you are, it's usually just people at your job or something. So you need to go out of your way and create the life that you want. It's not going to be handed to you.
So you have this idea of the difference between spending and investing. Could you kind of explain that to me and the audience?
Yeah, it's specifically that people look at spending and investing in the same thing. And specifically when we're talking about personal development, but in general, right? So you have to understand spending is a cost that you don't get anything in return for, or get anything in return for, meaning you get the item that you spent for, or the thing that you spent for, but there's no chance of a return on investment. So I buy an apple for $1, I spend $1, I get an apple. It's a trade. I go to an amusement park, I go to Six Flags, it costs me $100 for the ticket. I spend $100, I get that day, I get the enjoyment, I get whatever pictures, but I don't get anything back after that. There's no chance of me getting that $100 back. There's no chance of anything else. The transaction is over once it takes place. An investment is something where I had the opportunity to make a return, meaning if I buy a house for $100,000, I do it as an investment with the theory that that house will go up in value and 5 years later, I can sell it for $150,000. But what people don't often understand is that the greatest investment that we can make is in ourselves, right? We're in a time of financial turmoil right now. We're recording this. The stock market is at all-time lows. Crypto is down. NFTs are a bubble. Real estate is at all-time highs where it's cost prohibitive. Pretty much everything is in turmoil. But the one thing that you can always invest in that will always return dividends is investing in yourself, right? Books, seminars, conferences, coaching, because in times of economic disparity, the best thing that we can always lean on is people skills. right? NFTs, crypto, who the hell even knows what this means? But people skills, talking to someone, communication, being a good people person, there's always value in that. And that's why those type of skills, people look at them as cost, right? Oh, buying a coach, go pay, right? Like I said, I go to a podcast movement. So it costs me $1,000, let's say, to go to podcast movement. That's a seminar I'm going to. I mean, a convention I'm going to in a few weeks. And people look at that like, oh, you're spending $1,000 because I'm getting the ticket to go there, and I'm not, that's it. I'm not getting a return. But they're not understanding that's an investment, because I'm meeting people. I'm growing my network. I'm meeting other podcasters. I'm meeting people who are going to be on my show, people who are going to have me on their show, people who advertisers who might want to advertise on my show. There's a million different ways that I can spin that off, and that can become something bigger. But if I only look at it as a cost, I'm like, well, $1,000 for a ticket, I don't know, then I have to weigh the cost. But if I understand that it's an investment in myself because it's something that I'm passionate about, now it's like, well, I don't have to just look at it at that cost, that simple trade. I get to understand that it's a bigger thing, and that I'm investing in myself, and I'm investing in my growth. So, and I think that people look at things as a cost, and it's very limiting, because again, a course, right? So, I've done tons of courses over the years. People will ask like, well, what was it worth it? Was it worth it to pay that $500 for that course? And again, if you're looking at it as a sale, as a trade, a transaction, I paid $500, I got a course. Well, no, it's not worth it, because I didn't get any money for it, right? So I paid $500, I got a course. I didn't get, there's no $500, but if I understand that I paid $500, I got a course, and the education, the information, the growth I got from that course will make me money down the road, because again, it makes me more hireable. It makes me more, it makes me know something that impresses someone who then asks me to speak on their stage, or it makes me, say something at a party, who then go, they go, hey, you know what, you should meet my friend so-and-so, and he has a startup. And like, you can't quantify these things, but you have to stop looking at things as a cost and look at them as investments in your future, because that's what opens you up to making that decision. If I only look at it as a cost, I'm going to go, nah, that's too much money. No, that's too much money, which it is. It is, again, $500 here, $1,000 here. I'm not rich. I'm not saying to just throw this type of money around. But what I'm saying is, you have to look at these things in the broader, longer term, and realize that education and knowledge and growth can't be quantified like that. It has to be quantified in the form of connections and the people you meet and the opportunities that are afforded you by them.
So, Paul, I have some final questions that I'm going to ask every guest to see if there's anything that's being similar said from successful people. So one of my final questions is, what's your definition of success?
That's a tough one. Yeah, I think that to me, success would just be living my life on my terms. And that's it, in whatever way. So I want to be able to do the things that I want to do and not have to do anything that I don't want to do. And if I can do that, it's not about a monetary thing. It's not about anything else. It's just being able to live my life like I want to live it.
Let's say today's your last day on Earth. You have the world's attention. With all the experiences you've had, the conflicts you face, and the lessons you learned, you were able to tell people two things. What would be your advice?
My advice would be to do the hard thing, right? That you have to, nothing is easy, one, and anything that's easy isn't worth having. So inherently, you have to do hard things. That's the only way you get anything worthwhile after this life. And then the second thing would just be to accept what is, because that's all that there is. And again, that's the opposite of expectation. So accept more and expect less.
So lastly, I just want to say thank you for taking the time out of your day to come onto the podcast. This is our first time, for the listeners, this is our first time actually interacting. I've seen him at the gym, but never approached him or talked to him. But I reached out to him on Instagram, and he was being more than kind enough to come onto the podcast. So my last question is, where can the listeners find you?
Yeah, dude, and I appreciate you, reaching out. And I know it's hard to do what you're doing, because I've done it before. So I just want to say kudos to you for putting yourself out there and making it work, making it happen. And yeah, anyone who wants to contact me, again, my podcast is called The Happy Healthy Human. You can find it on any podcast player, wherever podcasts are. And then the best place to contact me personally directly is just on social media. It's just my name at Paul Levintin on all social media platforms. Instagram is where I'm most active, but Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, anywhere, just come find me. I'm always happy to chat.
All right. Thank you, Paul. Thanks for listening to this episode of Case by Casey. If you enjoyed this conversation, make sure to drop a like, follow, or rate on whatever platform you're listening on. Proper preparation prevents poor performance. So if you want to help others prepare for the path to success, don't forget to share this episode on social media so we can reach success together.